This is a special show. And the reason why this is a special show, because I was promised to do this show for the ladies, right? Because last month was Women's History Month, and it may seem as if I actually didn't get this show done, but however, I got copyrighted. I did the show. Uh, it got blocked by YouTube, and then I did the show again yesterday, and I had audio problems. So much so that I had to take down like 3 other videos that I uploaded up to YouTube. So I don't want you to think, ladies, that I forgot about you for Women's History Month. But this is another segment of American Power. This individual right here, I'm gonna let her introduce herself because I could have went a lot of different ways with this. I could have went white, black, Hispanic in representation of Women's History Month. However, I decided that, I had a lot of people to choose from. I could have chose Tupac's mom, who during the Black Power movement was a member of the Black Panther Party. When the Black Panther Party lost funding and had given funding to all the male members in order to fight their court battles, she had to fight her own case and won her case against the federal government while in prison. Had Tupac Shakur, in addition to while being in prison, had written the Prison Bill of Rights, which pretty much got to do with the medical system in prison, which consistently has been getting improved since the writing of that bill. Could have went with Harriet Tubman, a sister who developed the Underground Railroad, who went back into battle basically in the South to free slaves with the Underground Railroad. I could have went white. I could have went Hispanic. However, in modern times, this lady is so special because what she has done is historical. And her book did something that pretty much changed the nation. And when you think of the essence of a black lady, the responsibility segment is the reason why I keep this in the American Power Hour is because she speaks to that responsibility, that my freedom means nothing if yours is denied. And she's a person who, when so many of black men was being attacked from within the system, she decided to do something so significant that changed the dynamics of harassment towards black men. So, as I allow her to introduce herself, I will give her an introduction in terms of stating her name. Her name is Michelle Alexander. And I'm allow her to speak.
Jim Crow was a system of laws, policies, and customs that operated to discriminate against African Americans in virtually every aspect of social, political, and economic life. Well, ask yourself if some of the rules and laws governing felons today kind of remind you of a bygone era. Denial of the right to vote, right? 47 states and the District of Columbia deny prisoners the right to vote. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because in the United States, pretty much the only country in the world that denies people the right to vote once they've been released from prison in many states. In fact, about 1 out of 4 African American men have been permanently disenfranchised in a few states as a result of felon disenfranchisement laws. And nationwide, the figure is about 1 in 7. Employment discrimination. Employment discrimination, perfectly legal once you're branded a felon, right? Job applications ranging from Burger King clerk to accountant, got the box. Yeah, got to check that box if you've ever been convicted of a felony. Thousands of professional licenses are off limits to people who are labeled felons. In some states, you can't even get a license to be a barber if you've been convicted of a felony, right? Housing discrimination, perfectly legal. You know, back in the Jim Crow era was the era of racially restrictive covenants, right? Well, today, you can be discriminated against on the basis of your criminal history. In fact, public housing is off limits to you for a minimum of 5 years. Minimum of 5 years if you've been convicted of a felony. So here you are, newly released from prison, right? No money, no job. Public housing is off limits to you. Private landlords are free to discriminate against you. And, you know, your mother, aunt, sister, girlfriend who lives in public housing, well, she risks eviction by housing you, allowing you to stay in the apartment, right? So what are these folks to do? No job, can't find a place to stay, right? What are they expected to do? Well, they're actually expected to pay thousands of dollars in fees and fines. Following the collapse of slavery, you know, black men were routinely arrested for, you know, extremely minor crimes like loitering or vagrancy, right? They were arrested and sent to work on plantations through a program known as kind of convict leasing, right? The idea was that they had to earn their freedom, but the catch was they could never earn enough to pay back the costs of their shelter and their food and their clothing, and so they remained in perpetual servitude, a system that you know, some have called worse than slavery, right? Well, today we have a similar system. Even if a former prisoner manages to get a job, you know, you're one of the lucky few who manages to get a job, up to 100% of your wages can be garnished to pay back the cost of your imprisonment, to pay back fees, fines, and court costs, to pay back accumulated child support while you were in prison. So here you're one of the lucky few, you get a job, up to 100% of your wages can be garnished. What is the system designed to do? Right? Put you right back in prison. In fact, that is what happens about 70% of the time. Within 3 years, 70% of released prisoners are returned. And in fact, the majority of those who are returned within a few months. Because the hurdles, the barriers to just making it on the outside are so extreme.
So my dedication for Women's History Month on the Trumped Up Live show goes to Michelle Alexander. And this is the reasons why. She speaks to the essence of the culture of America, but she speaks to the essence of the culture in the dynamics of what a relationship between a black male and a black woman should ultimately be. My freedoms means nothing if yours is denied. She's a person who didn't have to go back and reach back, worked for the ACLU, took some time, but after studying, used through her intelligence of studying, looked and seen that the system was against the black man, so much so that when she written a book, we have had a change towards the harassment, towards the prison industrial complex that we once thought of as the only thing that black men deserve to be up in their place, without looking at the system that was perpetually putting them there in the first place. When the black man was consistently losing everything, and even the woman had been against the black man for what seems like ultimately their fault for what was going on. When jobs was being taken out of the system and being sent overseas, and a women were kicking men out of the house in order to be on welfare, which primarily for some odd reason seemed to affect the black community more than the white community, where men were being taken out the homes just so that the mother can receive social services. all seeming like the black man's fault as being a man and wanting to have that idea of uh, being the safe haven, being the comfort towards the family as the man supposed to be the ones that's going out there and working and being the responsible one, all these responsibilities that men have. This is a person, an example to you women, right? Particularly, even though I know it's more men who look at this show particularly, is an example to the woman of a woman that us black men miss. It's not to say that it's not a lot of y'all out there, but a lot of y'all have gotten it confused so much so to the point that it is being said that the black woman is the problem within our community. With a lot of shaking going on and all that, right? Pretty much turn their backs on their men in a lot of ways, and I have been subjected to that. However, this is one individual who chose to look at the black man and say, I understand what's going on, so much so that I'm going to write a book and I'm going to fight for you. Change the whole dynamic so much so that you got presidents like Donald Trump who came up with the second chance. Youth are now considered youth until the age of 26. So individuals who have life in prison, or excuse me, an extended time in prison because their brains weren't developed at the time of their offense, has the opportunity to gain youth parole. So much has changed since the writing of her book. This is the essence of a black relationship. So the Women History Month, I did too much on the first show. Ultimately, try to be a black man and serenading the black woman. You know what I'm saying? I did too much. And it made it seem like I didn't do the show, but as promised, in being a man and being about my word, Michelle Alexander gets that trophy for 2026 Women's History Month. You think about a soldier and you think that that's always consistent of it being a male. However, in the dynamics of a black man and a black woman's relationship, women have had to be soldiers too. Tiny Cross-H.U.G on the Trumped Up Live Show. Always remember, man, like, share, subscribe to the channel. It's a good day to be a soldier.